being yourself 100%, that is very hard. I feel like a lot of us are kind of on the 60% mark. Like, I can be 60% of who I am, but the last 40% is like little weird things on the inside that I'm scared to like mention or say, or I'm scared to talk about in case people think it's weird. Like, whatever it is you're hiding is where you're going to struggle to connect with people. I would just hide my emotions. I wouldn't show that I was sad. I'd never ever show I was crying. Would never show that I was happy, or, you know, on my birthday, I would hate to even mention it was my birthday. I would not talk about it. I wouldn't. As an anxious person, it's literally saved my life in so many ways. Just like you and your sibling argue, you and your parents argue, friends argue, like there's disagreements. And if there is an argument, something's building up in the back. Like, something is building up. There is tension brewing. So here's the problem. You set yourself the goal of making friends. If only I had friends, then I'd be happy. If only I had friends, then I wouldn't have social anxiety. I hate to break it to you, friends don't fix these problems. But I can tell you what does. Social anxiety and loneliness go hand in hand. I'll never forget the anticlimax that uni had on me when basically I came to uni thinking that like this is finally the time when I'm going to make some friends. I struggled so much in high school and in college and sixth form. It didn't come naturally to me. Like, I struggled so much, and I thought, finally, uni, this is the time. Like, I'm going to meet people that are like-minded. My mum kept telling me, like, don't worry, keep going. Like, just pass your exams. Once you get to uni, it's all going to be good. And I came to uni and it was such an anticlimax. Like, I didn't realise it when I was younger that I had social anxiety, and that's why it was so difficult. But when I was at uni, I just thought, like, I'm going to avoid any possible scenario where I have to speak to anyone. Like, I would go to classes, but I'd come so late that I was just arriving on time. I'd only stay for the necessary amount of time, and then I'd leave. And then I'd leave at a specific time so that it just finished, and then I was like not hanging about. How can this be the same girl that wants to make friends? Like, how is that going to happen, Christina? How can you literally not give enough time for social interaction and then plan to make friends? So it's no surprise if you're someone with social anxiety that you do experience loneliness. If anything, it's probably these people that experience the most. When you're socially anxious, what happens is you get these negative coping mechanisms. So you're so anxious and so on edge, so uncomfortable. So then you have different coping strategies to cope with it. And for me, it was just massive avoidance. I always hear about on TikTok, like attachment style. There's 4 different ones, like secure, avoidant, something and something. And I'm avoidant, and I'm like, obviously I'm avoidant. Like, I would literally avoid any sort of social interaction. Like, I hated it. Like, it was so uncomfortable. Because I feel like as well, when you're socially anxious, you don't even like giving spontaneity a chance. Like, because like you feel so uncomfortable with anything going wrong, or anything making you on edge, anything making you embarrassed, being unprepared, not knowing what to say, being called out, like just anything that's too spontaneous that you can't plan for, like you just want to avoid. So of course you're going to be lonely. As someone now who has more friends, I've realised that actually a lot of the times you make friends, it's more in the spontaneous moments. It's in the moments you don't plan as much. I was planning so much back in the day in terms of like, at university, it's so common to go to societies and like go to club sports and stuff. And I was trying to make friends and I was planning everything. I was like, I'm going to go to netball today and I'm going to go to the feminist society tomorrow. Like, I was planning everything, and I thought, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to make friends. I'm not going to be lonely anymore. And then I didn't meet anyone. Like, at all the events I went to, I remember I went to a feminist society event, and they were literally, some of them, like, they ignored me the whole time. It was such a small event as well. It was like, literally, I think probably like 5 people, including me, at the event. Like, there was not a lot of people there. They were doing like a presentation on feminist stuff, and I was kind of like, I'd never heard of any of it because it was quite niche. And then we molded these vaginas, and it was just like a feminist thing, and I was just like, oh my god, these are gonna be my people finally. And they ignored me the whole time. I think because they all knew each other and they were all on the committee, they were all like, they had a role at the event, and I guess no one showed up but the event runners. And then I showed up. They just ignored me, and I literally couldn't believe it. Like, I got like a high at the start, and then that was it. I was ignored for like the whole hour. I had to leave early. I felt so uncomfortable. So yeah, planning things, you can make friends doing that. I'm giving that's a bad example. You can meet people through planning events and stuff and being really intentional with it. Intention is good, but it doesn't always work. A lot of the friends I have now, it's more spontaneous. It happens. Like, you stumble into someone in the corridor because you were right, you didn't show up just on time to miss the social talk before. You come in, you just talk to someone, they introduce you to someone else, and that's how you make friends. Like, that's a lot of the friends I have now, that's how I met them. Like, social anxiety makes it hard to make friends because you literally run away from your fear. Like, your fear of whatever it is. Mine was always small groups of, like, people. I have no problems with a big lecture. No, I'm gonna get lost. No one's gonna see me. I've got no problem with that. One-to-one, also fine. It's just two of us. Like, sure, I can be chatty. I can pretend to want to get to know you and pretend not to be, like, sweating my absolute armpits off. Like, fine. But once it's a group of, like, 6, 7, 8, 9, I am in trouble. I'd feel so uncomfortable because that's big enough that, like, everyone kind of has seen everyone, and then it's also big enough, like, we should all be involved, we should all talk, we should all hear each other, and then I'm, like, panicking, like, oh my god, I have to talk, I have to say something, I have to look cool. Like, I would panic. That is not my sort of group. Now I'm totally fine with it. I'm probably one of the more louder people. I say louder, that's a big fat lie. But anyway, it's hard to make friends when you're socially anxious because maybe your issue is one-to-one, or maybe yours is lectures. Whatever it is, everyone's got a different situation which they panic over. Maybe it's all of them. Like, you're gonna run away from that, but obviously you want friends, so you need to be in groups of people, or in groups at least, to make those friends. It's so exhausting being socially anxious. Oh my god. There's probably a bunch of different strategies, tips, all the stuff to overcome your fear. For me, I'm trying to think what it was for me. I think it was just exposure, really. I didn't have a choice. So at my uni, I was saying, like, groups of 6, 7, 8 are what made me panic. Groups of 6, 7 and 8 is what we had every single day. Like, literally, I'm a medical student, so we were learning, like, practical skills, like how to take blood, how to do blood pressure and all this. So you had to do it in small groups and you had to do it on each other and stuff. So I couldn't escape it. I think I panicked so much. I would have regular panic attacks, but the more I did it, the better I got. I think I didn't want to run away from these situations because I don't like the thought of something having control over me. I know everyone's different and people cope differently, but I was struggling so much, like, at my absolute worst in anxiety world. Like, I struggled with depression in the past, but this wasn't when I was depressed. This is when I was anxious. Like, I was so anxious and I was struggling every single day, like nearly having a panic attack, having one. And I think over time I was just like, Christina, you can't let this have control over you. So I kind of just have to persevere. And I think the panic attacks slowly got slightly better and better and better. And moving on, trying to find your people is a scam. Maybe I'm only saying this because I haven't found my people yet, but I feel like it's similar to, like, The One. You know, romantically, there's 1,000,010 movies on, like, finding the one, or there's so many talks on TikTok and stuff about, there's so many debates even, in terms of, is it a thing, is it real? Is it just a romanticized fantasy? I feel like whatever your conclusion is on The One in terms of romantic relationships, it's the same for platonic relationships. I forgot the word then. I don't feel like you should put pressure on yourself to find your people or your friends, like your clique sort of thing. There are literally plenty of people that you will have amazing, fantastic friendships with that don't know you inside out, share every single hobby and passion that you have. You don't have to find your twin to find a good friend. You can find a good friend that you have very different hobbies to and very different interests to. It's kind of like if I had to ask you, like, would you never go on a date with someone who didn't tick all the boxes and didn't look like the one on paper? Like, would you go out with anyone else on a date, or it only has to be them? I think you should go on dates with other people. Like, why not? Like, you should. You get to learn about someone else, you get to have a good evening, have a good afternoon, free meal if you're lucky. But then also it opens you up to surprises. I think the thing I've realised about social anxiety, like when I had it and when I don't have it now, is you kind of close yourself off to surprises without realising it. Or you close yourself off to, like, spontaneity, different things happening that you wouldn't expect. Because you kind of live your life based on predictability. Everything that you want needs to be in your bubble of, like, I know what could happen. You don't want to open yourself up to anything that's like, I don't know what could happen. I don't know how to prepare myself. I don't know how I would escape, because that's another thing. I was so good at escaping social situations. I would always sit by the door. I would know every single room in my university, like, teaching centre. I would know where all the rooms were, where all the toilets were, so I could hide and have a panic attack, and I would just know how to escape. Like, I would always sit near the door just so I could leave. And for good reason. Panic attacks aren't nice to have publicly. They definitely aren't nice to have publicly. So that's not a criticism, but it's just a thing, like, to be aware of. Like, if you want to find friends, relationships, the one, your people, whatever it is, you do have to have an element of openness. And I think when you're socially anxious, sometimes you don't have that because you need to live in a bubble of, like, you need to be in control, really. That's what it is. Like, you need to be in control of your environment, how you're going to leave, what you're going to say, what you're going to wear. Like, you need so much control. And friendships don't always pan out in that way. Like, you can't always be controlling and make a friend. I suppose it's not be controlling. You're not being controlling of anyone else but yourself. You're just being I was being the English has left the chat. I was being in control of my environment. I needed to know I was sat in the right place, and I needed to know just how quickly I could get to the toilet so I could run and have a panic attack. And that also meant showing up, if it was a 9 a.m. lecture, showing up at 8:59, and that meant leaving at 3:01 if it finished at 3. Like, I just had to have control over like the things that I could control, and it made me feel better, and it helped the anxiety, but then it also meant that it didn't help the loneliness sort of things. Sometimes the things that you're doing to cope with the anxiety are messing up your chances of making friends. And that's not to criticize, again, it's just like sometimes knowing that can be helpful. Like, sometimes there's so much that you just don't know about social anxiety. Like, sometimes you struggle with this thing every single day. It's running your life nearly. Like, it's determining when you wake up, when you show up to the classes, when you leave the classes, who you hang out with after the classes, who you want to talk to at the classes. Like, it runs your life, but you don't understand much about it and why it's making you feel more lonely and why it's like, do you know what I mean? So knowing that helps. But the main point, you're finding your people is a scam. Scam is a big word, but I do think it is a scam. It's kind of like, I don't know, I can't remember where I saw this, but you know how there's guys that are so picky, there's girls as well, I suppose, that are so picky, and they're looking for the one, and they spend years and years and years going on dates, meeting new people, maybe marrying, maybe divorcing, but they just never find the right person to settle down with because they're looking for the one. They're looking for requirements upon requirements, and they just can't find it. I feel like that could happen. You rarely hear about that with friendships, because I guess no one's that picky with their friends. But it's just worth bearing that in mind, that like, if you are holding out for your people, you're gonna prolong your loneliness to some extent. The more you cling on to this idea that it has to be a certain group of people, certain interests, you're gonna bond in a certain way that you have in your mind, and it's a fantasy that you have. The more you cling on to that ideal, the longer that you might prolong your current state of feeling a bit lonely, or feeling like you don't have a group of people, because you're waiting for people around you to live up to a fantasy. Now, this is hard because as a socially anxious person, you've got time on your hands to think and ruminate. Like, you've got so much time to think about what you would want in friends because you don't have any. Like, you've got time to think about what you would want. So it's easy to build up an image and think, like, what would I want? Oh, they'd be like this, we'd go on holidays, like, they would all read these books, they would find this interesting, we could all meditate together, we'd go on holiday. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you've got time to think. So it's not anything to feel bad about if you have got a fantasy, but it's just to bear in mind, like, do not feel like they all have to live up to that idea. You can absolutely have amazing friends that don't live up to that imaginary idea that you've got. And if anything, it's probably better if they don't. Like, to some extent, our fantasies are called fantasies for a reason. They are imaginary. There are some amazing moments in life where I'm sure reality is better than your imagination. But a lot of the time, imagination is imagination for a reason. It's meant to be wild. It's meant to be like the biggest and the best because it lives in your mind. And so sometimes I think, I did this, changing the subject, I did this with uni where because I had such a tough time in school, I imagined that uni would be like amazing, like literally not even just friendships. Like, I imagined that, like, oh my god, I'm gonna meet boys, I'm gonna have so much confidence, I'm gonna wear these cool clothes, I'm gonna be totally myself, I'm gonna do all these things. None of it happened because it's imagination. Like, it goes wild, it goes beyond what you think it could be. And there are some moments in life where reality can blow imagination out of the water and reality is actually better, but that's not all the time. And you don't want to have unrealistic expectations of your life. Like, sometimes I think it's maladaptive daydreaming, people can just have this like warped thing where they're living in their head these amazing daydreams and stuff, and it takes away from like their life that they're living. I think I made a short on that, and the comments were quite interesting, so I'll link that down below in case anyone wants to read the comments. But speaking of friends, the friends you want need you to be you. I'm sorry if this is distracting you. It was in my I filmed 2 videos back to back, and this was a hairband, you know, the ones that don't mess up your hair, and it literally snapped. I'm playing with it that much. I'm so like, I'm not even a fidgety person. What am I on about? She says as she changes foot position for the 4th time this video. The friend you want need you to be you. You are looking for a certain type of friend. I guarantee if you're watching this video, you've got an idea of the friends that you want. Where you guys go to eat, what you guys do when you're hanging out, what interests you guys have, what you talk about, the fact that you bond over certain things and they get you. Or you don't even say anything, they just know that you're off and you're a bit sad today. Like, oh my god, you seem down, is everything okay? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you've got an idea of the friends that you want. With that in mind, the friends that you want, if you want to make them, they need you to be you. The sort of friends that you want, like I was describing, like they can tell when your mood is off and you're a bit down. That requires you being able to show that you are down sometimes and that you are a bit low. I had this weird thing where I had an idea of the friends I wanted, but I was scared to be myself. I was still pretending and still putting on a bit of an act, like not in a fake way at all, but just like I was anxious and nervous but hiding it and pretending to be okay. I was pretending to have my act together, really pretending like I've got my shit together when I don't. But the friends that you want, literally, they need to know that you don't have your shit together. If you want them to be able to just click with you and get you, they need to see all those little quirks and those little weird things that you're like so keen on hiding all the time. Some of us, i.e. me, don't have the balls to be ourselves. Like, it's hard to be the person that you are. Like, if you are like 0 to 100, like being yourself 100%, that is very hard. I feel like a lot of us are kind of on the 60% mark. Like, I can be 60% of who I am, but the last 40% is like little weird things on the inside that I'm scared to like mention or say, or I'm scared to talk about in case people think it's weird. Like, if I'm being honest, like weird things that I never bring up in combo is just my obsession with meditation. Like, as an anxious person, it's literally saved my life in so many ways. I love meditation. I'm the world's biggest advocate for it, but you would never know because I never talk about it because I'm scared. Like, I'm scared. I really want to go to Tokyo. Tokyo looks so cool. I don't know a single word of oh my god. I don't know a single word of Japanese, but I really want to go. I'll learn Japanese just so I can go to Tokyo and like try and like see and talk, and I really want to go. All these little things that I was scared to talk about, I still kind of am, to be honest. Like, those are the things that would help me make the friends that I dream of and that I want. Another thing, you probably noticed, I stumble on my words a lot, probably because I talk quicker than I can think. Like, whenever I film a video, I realise, like, wow, I talk so quick. And whenever I'm editing, I'm like, Jesus, Christina, slow down. Like, Christina editing this is like, ooh. The friends that I want need me to talk about that. How are they going to find me and connect with me if I don't talk about those things? And just like you want friends that kind of know how to look after you emotionally and they can tell when you're down, you need to be able to show that as well. Showing your emotions is such like a game changer. I spent years and years and years hiding so many emotions. Not even just sadness and feeling a bit down and hiding that I was crying, but even happiness as well. I had this weird thing where I wouldn't celebrate anything. Like, I'd get a really good grade in a test and I'd just be like, yeah. It's like, what? Like, I wouldn't show that I was happy or anything. I need to change the battery, one sec. Yeah, so basically I would just hide my emotions. I wouldn't show that I was sad. I'd never ever show I was crying. Would never show that I was happy, or, you know, on my birthday, I would hate to even mention it was my birthday. I would not talk about it. I wouldn't, good, bad, happy, sad, I just wouldn't show it. And God knows why I did that. Some sort of weird coping mechanism, some sort of attachment disorder or separation anxiety, I don't even know, but I just wouldn't show any sort of emotion. And this was when I was much younger. I'm definitely not like that now, but it's just something to bear in mind. This video is full of things to bear in mind. I should probably title this video things to bear in mind when you have social anxiety and want to make friends. But whatever it is you're hiding is where you're going to struggle to connect with people. Whether it's emotional or not, it could literally be something to do with, like, it could be really surface level and be like you struggle to talk about your family because of some difficult things, or just your family's not traditional family, so you don't want to talk about it. Like, it just means that you're never going to connect over your family. Someone, you never know what someone's situation is, because someone could have the similar thing. Someone could be in a similar boat and also be scared to talk about their family, but you guys have a similar family situation, but you're scared to talk about it. Like, do you know what I mean? And the last thing, I think a lot of people who are socially anxious might hype up friendships and connections to be something bigger than it is, because let me tell you, friendships change like the weather. You might spend so much time literally fantasizing, daydreaming about friends and having a group of friends and friendships, but honestly, you might be making it out to be bigger and better than what it is. There are some friendships out there that are amazing, I'm sure, but the everyday friendship that you walk past in the street or that you see on TikTok is probably not as amazing as you think. And that's not to shit on them or anything. It's just to say, like, just like you and your sibling argue, you and your parents argue, friends argue, like, there's disagreements. And if there is an argument, there's definitely a resentment of some kind, because if you're not talking about something openly, something's building up in the back. Like, something is building up. There is tension brewing. Don't think that you're missing out massively, and don't buy into this feeling of FOMO, like you're missing out on something extravagant, because I promise you you're not. Friendships change like the weather, and by that I mean just the dynamic changes. What you think you mean to them might change. You might think you mean a lot lot to them, they don't. You might think you don't mean a lot to them, but you do. I've had both, where I thought someone was just a friend, like a casual friend, but I meant a lot to them more than I thought I did. And I thought I meant a lot to someone, but actually I didn't mean a lot to them. Like, it's just so dynamic. It's so much more, there's so much more little things that influence a friendship than you think. It's infinite, the things that kind of go in and impact how you guys see each other and the dynamic. Oh my god, that should be a degree, like just friendship studies. Like, there's a lot to say. They're not at all fixed, and I think people have this problem where they hope for, I want to make friends, like it's a fixed thing, but it's such a dynamic thing that's like constantly changing. I was saying this in one of my other videos, like you do not and should not have the goal to make friends, because it's such a dynamic process. A better goal is to build friendships, because that's what it is. Like, it's kind of like, you could say like my goal is to get into a relationship. That is a goal to have, but really building a relationship or working on one is a lot better, because a relationship is never finished or fixed. It's a constant process of learning each other, finding out more about each other, being better partners for each other. That's the same with a friendship. Like, it's constantly evolving and you both learn and grow together, or the group of you. But that is enough talking. My throat is starting to hurt. I need a hot drink of water to try and soothe my neck right now. I hope this was helpful. I never see videos like this on the internet. I never see people going into like a lot of detail on stuff like this. And I feel like for weirdos like me who like a lot of detail on weird niche topics, this might be interesting. Or it might be terrible. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to know. Bye.